in terms of Clogau, there's massive blue sky. Welsh gold has always attracted a premium price.
To be clear for the audience, this is regular gold, but from Wales. There's a marketing story to be able to get those sorts of multiples in terms of, whether it be 2, 3,
There is a marketing
5 times.
story, as a massive marketing story. Gold coins and small gold bars, they would be an investment in their own right.
Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up and please leave your comments below. It just helps us understand the types of questions you'd like us to ask, your thoughts on the company, and your general feedback is very useful for helping us develop this product. And if you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to George Frangeskides, who's the CEO of Alba Minerals. We last spoke to him in October. They are a small UK listed company with multiple assets. They've got an interest in Horse Hill, which is oil and gas. They've got a few projects in Greenland, mainly sort of graphite, ilemnite, sort of mineral sand type projects. And they've got the Clogau gold project in Wales. So it's a very multifaceted company, but 3 million market cap, not a lot of cash, and a very small credit line to work with. So what do you do? So George talks us through his plans. They seem to have evolved slightly from the last time we spoke to him, and he is telling us also that he's been greatly restricted by COVID-19. So it's a real balancing act. We're interested because it's a small company, some interesting assets. How do they get them financed when conversations with JV partners have stopped? We'll find out. Take a look in the description below to look at some of the topics we discuss. Anything interesting in particular, click on the relevant timestamp and that'll take you to that part of the video. But enjoy what George has to say. Hello, George. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. We saw you, I think, in London in October. Quite a lot has changed since then. So I assume you're at home, holed up, avoiding people.
Yes, indeed. We are holed up, have been for some time, but the workload doesn't diminish.
Good.
I'm sure, as you realise as well. So we're soldiering on.
Good. Okay. Well, look, let's kick off with a 1-minute overview for people new to this story, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Sure. Well, Alba Mineral Resources PLC, we're listed on the AIM market in London. We were set up as a mining company. We've always been a mining company. We've operated our own licenses. Started off in Scotland and Ireland. We've then moved into Greenland in quite a big way. We've got 4 projects in Greenland, 2 with JORC Resources, 1 which we were hoping to have a JORC resource this season, but no doubt we'll come to the reasons why that's a little bit delayed in our chat. And we've also got a 90% interest in the Clogau gold mine in North Wales, which is a unique story, which I'm sure we can talk about as well. And we've got 2 investments in oil, so that's quite unusual for a miner. But we saw an opportunity to get involved in that Horse Hill story 5 years ago. We were a founding member of that consortium, and we've stuck with the project now in commercial production. So that's been a success, and so we've got quite a diversified portfolio really of mining assets in different commodities: gold, graphite, mineral sands, in particular in Greenland, the gold in Wales, and of course these oil and gas investments as well. So quite diversified.
It's very diverse. It's diverse for a small company. I mean, obviously today I think been hit by market reset and obviously COVID-19 conditions. So you're about 3 million market cap. I think you were double that when I saw you last. Should we start with let's start with Horse Hill. Just park that because that's something which you're in, but you don't really have day-to-day management control of. So where are they with that project? They're in commercial production. What does that mean?
So it means they're producing from Horse Hill 1. They also drilled Horse Hill number 2. So that last year. So that was successful in terms of penetrating the zone that they wanted to penetrate. They then had a water issue in terms of water inflow. which they then look to resolve. So I think HH2 is still sort of work in progress. The idea with HH2 was that it would produce much higher volumes of oil than a vertical, because HH2 is a horizontal, 2Z as it's called. And you're expecting, certainly their UCOG's advisors were telling them you could get 2 to 3 times flow rates from an optimized horizontal versus an optimized vertical. In other words, a perfect horizontal versus a perfect vertical would get you hopefully 2 to 3 times volume. So, we're still waiting for that. That's obviously going to be a big boon for the project if that happens and if that can be achieved. At the moment, I think the real mainstay is HH1, and that's has been sort of steadily producing around the sort of 250 to 300 barrels per day mark. So that's pretty stable and has been on production since July 18. It was test production, and only recently, when they got their final approvals through, it became commercial production. So that's very good. So there's 25 years of planning permission. There is a long-term consent from the OGA to go into the commercially produced. So all of the regulatory side of things is very, very, is in place. I think that the plans, obviously, from the operator are to try and get the production up so that there is, it's more profitable. Of course, the project is hit by the oil price, and that's really also been in the doldrums of late. To see US oil at a negative price is astonishing, really. I mean, Brent, as you know, hasn't been affected quite in that same way, but it's obviously has been affected, and it's down at, I haven't looked today, but it's obviously been around the $20 mark for a little while now.
So it's very extraordinary to see a negative chart in oil. People are being paid to take oil because there's nowhere to store it. It is extraordinary. Yeah. You're right. But coming back to your investment in Horse Hill, I appreciate their current issues with working, etc., and they are trying to optimize things. But what was your expectation for what that would mean for you in terms of monetary contribution, and what has that been revised to?
We're not making any monetary contribution at present. We took a decision, 6 to 9 months ago, that we wouldn't contribute to the last cash flow that was a cash call that was issued. There's various reasons for that. Nothing to do with our view of the project per se, just our view of where our money is best spent. We had banked a considerable interest in that project. We had spent a lot of money in banking that interest, both in terms of following our money, contributing to cash calls, more than £2 million worth, and buying interest in Horse Hill. So we only got a 5% interest on the setup of the consortium, but then we bought from Angus, we bought from Regency, and we ended up with 18%. From 5 to 18, became the second largest holder in that consortium. So, we haven't been putting money into it of late, but we still obviously have faith that it will come good. And obviously what come good means is that ultimately we should see our share of revenues coming out of it. So that's the end game, if you like. But if it doesn't, I've been very public about the fact that we will either stay with this for the long term and look to get our share of revenues out, or we will, happily at the right price see this as what it is, which is an investment for Alba, and look to exit on decent terms that will give us a net positive outcome that will just, one of the things that we've been clear about is we've got a lot of assets and investments. I think that was the right strategy. I've seen a lot of juniors with one asset failing in that asset and going nowhere and becoming a shell. We were determined that we would identify and secure really good assets in a range of commodities, which would give us the best chance that one or more of those could become what we call in the industry a company maker, and really show decent returns for our shareholders. So that's still the strategy, but now is the time also to say, well, times are hard. Raising money is difficult. We don't like to raise money at these levels. So certainly one of the strategies that we have been following is to try to divest of at least one, if not more, of our sort of what we'd consider, I suppose, non-core assets.
Right. And what do you think this is worth to you? What's it on your books at?
On the books at about, it's a very good question. I think it's on the books about 5.5 million, something like that. I might be wrong. Someone's going to pore over our accounts now and tell me that I'm wrong, but it's in that range of acquisition cost plus investment into the actual work that's been ongoing. So it's for, let's say it's in the 4 to 5 million bracket, maybe a little bit more than that.
Interesting. Your market cap's 3 million today. Interesting.
Yeah, but that's not unusual, is it? I mean, that's the problem. I mean, I've had a chat with someone the other day, and they were interested in one of our assets, and this happens all the time. This is not exceptional, by the way. We've got good assets. And I said, well, the first thing you need to do is not look at our market cap, because we will not entertain offers on the basis of a non-core asset where you divide our 8 assets by £3 million. You can forget it. Right now, you might think that's unrealistic, but that is the way we look at things, right? So our market cap, people say, well, the market is telling you what you're worth. I'm afraid the market is telling us all sorts of things at the minute. And the market is a little bit capricious, shall we say, if I can say it properly. I don't believe that. I don't believe that our assets are worth what the market is telling us. They're worth a lot more, and I think individual assets like the Horse Hill asset is worth more than.
Okay. So given at some point you're going to need to raise some capital for the other projects, at what point? Because I think today isn't perhaps a good environment to be selling oil assets, and not unless things are dire. At what point and at what price do you think you're going to be able to divest your way out of Horse Hill?
Look, I wouldn't even if I had an idea, which I do, I wouldn't particularly want to broadcast what I think we would sell out our asset at in Horse Hill, because obviously we have had discussions with various parties about that, and we've got a very firm view. We've done our own valuation on Horse Hill. We know what we think it's worth. I know what the range is. And therefore, until that offer comes on the table, we won't entertain discussions, really. So you're right. I mean, we don't have to sell, right? We actually don't have to sell any of our assets. We don't have to. But there is interest in a range of our assets, and I think it would be obviously remiss of us not to take those approaches seriously. We have had to issue a lot of shares, and I know that. I mean, I'm an investor. I'm a shareholder in Alba. It pains me that the share price is what it is. It's really come off a lot in recent times. I think it's oversold. I would say that, but I do think it's oversold. But we've had to issue a lot of shares to increase our stake in Horse Hill and to do placings, to spend money. We spend a lot of money on our projects. We've got JORC resources on 2 of them. We've certainly progressed. We've used the money well, but there's no denying that our share price isn't where we need it to be.
So, would you sell your stake in Horse Hill at a Freudian slip at a discount to what you've got on the books at today? Or are you looking for a premium?
That wouldn't be our starting point, no. No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, because we've just been through an audit. So, when you go through an audit, you need to obviously justify the book value of all your assets. And so those discussions have been, held. And to be honest, they're based on real data. So, there are other sales in Horse Hill over the last 3-4 years, and they set a benchmark. Whether that benchmark has to be revised, let's see how the oil price settles in the next 6 to 12 months, because obviously we'll be in audit time again in 12 months time, and we might have to take a different view on the long-term outlook for oil, or it's been very volatile, as you well know, the oil price. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that it was riding high. It really wasn't that long ago. So it's been very volatile, and it can be affected by so many global factors. This dispute between OPEC and OPEC Plus, and all this stuff that's going on. So it's hard to say. I mean, a lot of predictions, but hard to say where it'll be in 6 months, let alone 12 months.
Okay, so you don't need to sell. You'll review it as the global economy hopefully settles down, or at least gets into some kind of routine, and you'll make an assessment. Okay, and you're saying you have had or are in discussions about it.
Yeah, always. We are. I mean, it's just and that shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, it's not that I've got anything to announce, because obviously the first person we'd have to tell about that would be our Nomad and the AIM market. But there's nothing to announce. But we, as with all businesses, we're constantly in discussions with third parties about all sorts of things. Okay. But that includes our assets. And I'm pleased to say, and I've always said if asked, that we regularly field questions from people who would like to get involved with what we've got on our asset portfolio, and that is a sign that what we've done is right. Okay. I think it will come to fruition eventually, but it'll take a little bit more time for reasons which no doubt we will come to.
Okay, let's get on to something slightly more regal. Let's talk about Clogau, your gold mine in Wales. You gave us give us a little potted history, please, before we kind of get into the actual mining component.
It is unusual. It's unique. I mean, it's the UK's largest producer of gold in history. It produced the Dolgellau Gold Belt, which is where Clogau is. Produced, I think, recorded about 120,000 ounces over time. That doesn't sound like a lot. I think a lot of it, let's just say diplomatically, that maybe not all of it was recorded. Let's not forget it was in production since the 1850s. And all the stories from the people in the area that I've spoken to, whose grandfathers and great-grandfathers worked down the mine at Clogau, telling us about how they pulled out rocks that were covered in gold. They'd never seen anything like it, and I've never seen anything like that. I mean, we've got some high-grade specimens, which are very nice, but the stuff they're talking about is just phenomenal grades of gold. And I'm sure that actual production levels were a lot higher. Let's just say that. But Clogau itself is the largest producer in UK history. About 80,000 ounces recorded again. On and off production, a heyday was the second half of the 19th century, the first half of the 20th century. It then had intermittent production sort of in the second half of the 20th century. Last production was in the late 90s, I believe. It's then been held by one or two groups. I wouldn't say they pulled up any trees in terms of what they were doing. But we decided that there was a massive opportunity here. I mean, it is a challenging project because it's narrow-veined gold. It's underground. The mine is underground. It has to be underground because of the setting. It's in the Snowdonia National Park. But there is a mine there. And if you had to put a mine in place there now, with the amount of development that is there, would cost you millions today at today's prices. But we've got all that. I mean, it's massive underground. And we think it's inconceivable that there isn't more gold there, because the old timers, just the old companies that used to operate this mine, used to just chase the veins as they saw them into the hillside, literally by sight, and that's how they did it. They applied. Maybe I'm doing them a disservice, but they didn't apply a huge amount of what we would call modern. They didn't have those techniques available to them. Modern geophysical, geochemical, and geological techniques that we now have and are able to employ to work out where these systems lie, where the gold-bearing setting is likely to be found, and beneath existing workings. So they haven't gone as far as they could do. We drilled end of last year into an area that we hope to intersect gold. Now, the difficulty with drilling at Clogau is it's narrow vein, so you can imagine that you could hit a couple of holes 5 meters apart, and in a typical uniform deposit, you would expect to hit gold if your geology is right. But here you may miss it, because in between those 5 meters might be the highest grade gold you've ever found in the history of UK gold mining, but you didn't hit it because you went slightly to the left and slightly to the right, and that is the difficulty. But what we've and that's why we said we were drilling for structure primarily, not for grade, and we found the right structure. So we know what the geological setting is that we want to find, and where gold has always been produced from Clogau. So the drilling was successful, albeit that the market didn't particularly like it because it was great structure, but not high grade gold, and that's what anyone.
Okay, well let's talk about it. What did you buy? How much did it cost you? And what did you inherit in terms of the data? Because talking about old timers is great, but it doesn't give you anything to work with today. So tell us about that.
It was owned by two companies. One was public, one was private, and we bought the public stake from a company called Stellar Resources, I think when we bought it, they had changed to Primoris Investments. That was a 49% stake. And then we bought another 41% from the private group. So we became majority owners of 90%. We've got the right to go to 100% in the future, so we can say that we own all of it. So that's what we did. About £1 million all in, probably. There or thereabouts, probably. I'd have to go back and check, but something in that range. Mainly in shares, so it was another share deal. But our share price was quite a bit higher then. So that's what we paid. We had done a lot of homework on it. We'd been to site several times. We had looked over the data. There's a lot of historical data. There are a lot of reports written on Clogau. There are a lot of people who are very clever, who have worked on the project in the last 20 years, who are experts in narrow vein gold settings like this. And we had assimilated all of that data and decided that there was a good chance, a good significant prospect of finding economic resources of gold at Clogau that had never been mined before.
And what does that mean? Tell me about the economics. What does that mean? You made an evaluation based on what data and what sort of quantum? Have you got a resource?
We don't. The evaluation is essentially that we take into mind the fact that Welsh gold has always attracted a premium price on the market. So whatever and of course spot price of gold is currently riding high. We have typically said we would expect to be able to get 2 to 3 times spot price of gold for Welsh gold, and particularly for Clogau gold. That has historically been the case. And in fact, I don't want to sort of hang my hat on it, but we've also seen prices of 10 to 20 times gold. Now, that's partly to do to scarcity value. And of course, if we flood the market with Welsh gold, that scarcity value may recede or diminish, but we would control that market. So we would control how much Welsh gold is sold into the market and keep its cachet. And why has it got a cachet? Well, Welsh people are very proud. They like Welsh gold. The international market likes Welsh gold and Clogau gold because the royal family uses it, has used it for a century. And so it has the royal cachet. So I think for various reasons, it's always fetched a premium price. So we're not looking at another 80,000. It would be nice if we got another 80,000 ounces, obviously, but we don't think we need that to make a very, very successful story here. I look at what Scott Gold's done and is doing, and obviously they had a long time it took them to get into production. They're expecting that. I think they've been delayed, obviously, for COVID reasons, but they are obviously they're on the cusp of first gold. So they're a 25 million market cap. Now you might not think that's stellar, but it's very solid. It's a very solid business, clearly, and it has good backing. And we see no reason why we couldn't be in that realm, if not, better off, because we only need 5 to 10, probably 5 to 10,000 ounces per annum to make a very, very successful. If you think about if you're able to sell that for 4 or 5 times, you're effectively producing 50 to 60,000 ounces rather than the 5 to 10 you're actually producing.
When was the last time Welsh gold was sold in the open market?
It's been sold in small amounts in auctions, specialist auctions, and those have fetched, from what I've seen, sort of 8 to 10, sometimes 20 times spot rates. But we are talking about very small quantities, relatively small quantities. But the there is a market there. I mean, there is a private producer of Welsh gold jewellery who've been very successful in the last 5-10 years. They've been selling to international markets. They've got franchises in airports, and they've got various shops around the UK, in particular in Wales, but not only in Wales. You can buy their stuff. I don't want to give them an free advert here, but you can buy their stuff on the BA, in-flight magazine. There's an international demand, and we've had international buyers coming to us and international jewellery firms of repute coming to us and saying they would love to get involved with our Clogau gold project.
Okay, and to be clear for the audience, this is regular gold, but from Wales. So this is a marketing story to be able to get those sorts of multiples in terms of, whether it be 2, 3,
there is a marketing
5 times.
story, there's a massive marketing story. There's a massive opportunity. Obviously, we could produce, if we have enough of it, we could produce different types of product here. We're talking about gold coins and small gold bars. Those things are very collectible. We would expect them to fetch a significant premium. They would be an investment in their own right. And then there is this jewellery market, and it's not to be sneezed at. It is a massive potential market for Clogau gold, and we would position ourselves differently to that competitor, and there are 1 or 2 others who are out there sort of selling Welsh gold. We would be looking to produce much higher end, bespoke items, which would fetch, a massive premium. We'd hope. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of work still to be done on that, but that is part of what the work we're looking at in terms of monetizing this asset.
So the way you've described this to me is that you think 25 million, like Scots Gold, would be a nice solid business not to be sniffed at. So there's a kind of almost a cap to this, or what the potential is here. So how does an existing shareholder or a new shareholder look at that and go, that's the one for me? Because there's no blue sky. You're so clear.
No, there is blue sky. There's massive blue sky. I mean, I therefore should give you a bit more detail on. I mean, Scott Gold is what I'm saying is they've done a good job. They've taken a long time because they've had a lot of regulatory hurdles. They've overcome those. They've got a 25 million market cap. It's a solid business. I'm not saying we are Scott Gold Mark II. I'm saying that it just shows you there is a potential there with a UK gold-based story to get into, tens of millions of market cap, which is where we should be as a company, right? We've got some very, very solid, if not stellar, assets in our portfolio, and there is no reason why we shouldn't be there. Even now, we should be there, right? The market's not giving us that credit, but we will try to change that. But in terms of Clogau, there's massive blue sky. I mean, this is a gold belt that we have. We're the only listed company that's got any of it. We've got most of it under license to ourselves. There's a little bit that is held by that company that makes gold jewellery. They're not. They've got another mine. They're not in production. They're just using past levels of production to produce their gold. But anyway, point is, we've got most of this Dolgellau gold belt under license to one company, Alba Mineral Resources, and our subsidiary Gold Mines of Wales. There is nobody else who can say that. And we have found, we did a lot of work, not just in the mine in the last 2 years, but we've been going out into the fields of North Wales with our team of crack graduate geologists, led by some very senior geologists, of course, but keeping costs down, because it's a very simple exercise. We've been running a soil sampling campaign over miles and miles of this gold belt. We've only still done about 25% of it. And already we found 10 gold anomalies in areas where there has not been any previous significant mining. Now, it is exploration work, right? But it is, it's phenomenally interesting and massive potential, because if we can find one or maybe even more than one deposit that's economic, that's outside of the Clogau footprint, the current Clogau mine footprint, we've got another potential Clogau mine on our hands that has never been exploited before. So, when you say blue sky, I mean, you couldn't get more blue sky than that. We could be setting on the proverbial gold mine, and we won't know until we push that work forward. So it is painstaking work. No one's ever done it before, to our knowledge. Amazing though it may sound, this is standard exploration work 101. Take it off the bookshelf. This is how you do it. No one's done it before, but we've painstakingly gone in and we've done this over several miles so far, but there's several miles still to be sampled. And already we've seen 10 samples, 10 anomalies, and you need to go into each and every one of those anomalies now, because all you're talking about is gold in soil. So we find detection levels of gold in soil, and we know that there's something interesting going on. Where's that gold in soil coming from? So what we want to do is expose the bedrock of some of these targets and sample the actual host rock underneath the soil, which is only about 1 meter in depth to get to the bedrock. Sample that. If that shows that we've got some gold bearing quartz veins there, we might be onto something. We then drill it, and we can drill from, well, obviously we're drilling from surface, so it's nice virgin territory, virgin targets. The blue sky potential is enormous.
How much cash have you got today?
How much cash have we got today? I think we can only tell you what was last told to the market, which would have been our year-end accounts, I think. So I couldn't tell you hand on heart what we've got, and I'm not sure I can tell you hand on heart what we've got because it is price sensitive. But what I can say about cash is the most recent development that we announced was that we had entered into a financing with a group called Bergen Global Opportunity Fund. They're well known, New York-based investment firm. They have provided funding to tens of juniors like ours over time, if not hundreds, I'm not sure, but lots. They're very big. They've got a lot of money available for companies like us to help us with development capital. So we've basically signed a deal where we get a minimum of £750,000 and maybe up to $1 million and a bit from them over a period of 12 to 18 months. So that underpins some of the work we want to do in the next 6 to 12 months. And that is going to be, and the good thing about it is that money is available. We know it's there. There's a runway of funds that's coming pursuant to that agreement. In this market, it was actually very good that we got that sorted before the real downturn hit us, because I'm not sure how it would be to raise money on standard equity raisings right now. I wouldn't have thought it'd be very easy, but it was good. They convert, it's a convertible, they convert the shares that they get. They've got certain limits on how much they can convert at any one time so that we don't impact our share price unduly. That's so there's safeguards in there. And the idea is, of course, from our perspective, is that then they convert hopefully into a rising share price. And that's dependent on us to an extent, getting the good news out there and getting our share price moving again. It's also dependent, of course, on factors beyond our control that I'm sure we'll come to. But no matter how good the work we do is, we suffer in times like this, and therefore, in a sense, we need to ride it out, get through this, and that good news that we then will be able to push out will be in a receptive market. At the moment, I could tell you, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not true. I could tell you some good stuff on gold, and that would probably push our share price, because gold is very much flavor of the month. But otherwise, there's not a lot that will move the needle at the moment.
Well, there's not, because we haven't talked about Greenland yet, and I know we're conscious of time here, but Greenland, obviously, with things like ilemnite and graphite and so forth, to release the value there, you have to spend money. So with a limited amount of cash, gold's in a bull market at the moment. Is the plan, once you can get people back at work, is the plan to focus on the gold and just sort of do the bare minimum on Greenland? Obviously not really involved in Horse Hill, you're divesting, if anything. What is the plan going forward? Because it's, these guys are investing, and maybe they want to, convert at a higher share price, but there's so many things which are out of their control. But the things which are in your control, like where do I deploy my capital, my time, to generate the best value for shareholders, for the best long-term gain for the company? What's the plan? I haven't kind of heard the game plan.
You're right. I mean, obviously, there's always a limited amount of cash, and we've got to direct it in the best way that's going to possibly move our share price in the right direction. Now, Clogau, the good thing about Clogau is it needs smaller amounts of money than you'd otherwise think. So the regional exploration we did was actually fairly inexpensive. We want to go in. Drilling can be expensive, of course, and it doesn't necessarily suit itself to doing a shed load of drilling at this project. What we'd like to do, in having done a bit of drilling and identified a zone that we think is interesting, is to go in and do some bulk sampling. So again, that can be fairly inexpensive. So we'll go in and take a lot of material out, in terms of, a good few tons of material, and then we will process that. And that will be with a view to seeing if that zone, is going to be of economic interest to support restarting mining. And if it's not, we move on to the next zone. And we've got several zones within the existing underground system that we would want to do bulk sampling at. So that's one thing that we can do. As soon as we're able to start work again, we'll go back in and do that, what we call trenching over those regional targets, to expose the bedrock, sample them. But in the mine, we want to go in and do some bulk sampling and get that material processed and see what gold is in there, and see if that zone will support a mining operation. And then that will be the basis on which we then look for full-scale planning permission to restart mining at Clogau. So these are exciting things, and they can all be moved forward fairly quickly as soon as we can start working safely again in North Wales. In Greenland, it's a different kettle of fish, because it is a fairly remote part of the world, even though our southernmost project is in the same latitude as northern Scotland, so it's not that far, but it's a huge country, and our northernmost projects are near the Arctic Circle, right? So Greenland's a massive country. It's only 50,000 population. They've only had a few COVID incidents, but they've got obviously a limited health care system. We don't want to overload it. We have had to put our operations on hold there because there simply weren't any international flights. They had stopped international flights into Greenland. And obviously we have to be cognizant of the risks to our personnel, to our contractors, and to members of the public if we are sending teams of people from other parts of the world to Greenland, and there's all sorts of risks associated with that. So we have had to put our work on hold there. The Greenland government have been very supportive of the mining industry. It's not the first time that they have done this. In a previous downturn, they did the same thing. They've basically given us a freeze on our expenditure commitments for 2020. All miners, all people with licenses have had a freeze, because we normally have to spend a certain amount of money every year to keep our licenses in good standing. They've said, no, don't worry about that for this year. The reality is that we may not. Our big plan for Greenland this summer was to go in and drill Amitsoq, our high-grade graphite project, get a JORC resource there. We know there's a lot of graphite there. It was a previous mine, a bit like Clogau. It was a mine a long time ago. It's got the highest average grades, graphite grades, that I know of any project in the world. The reason why we can't really compare ourselves to some of those other projects at the moment is because we don't have a resource that we can show the market. So we wanted to go in and drill that. I think that the chances of that now are it's still there. It's still a possibility, but I would not say it's a probability. And that really depends on when things open up in Greenland. And I think, and that we're comfortable with state work safe. But yes, we can do a lot of work still. We've appointed Pro Graphite. They're a specialist graphite house in Germany. They're going to be doing a lot of testing on our graphite. We've got a load of material from previous field seas. We want to show, we've shown that we've got flake graphite of high value in our previous test work. We want to show, with Pro Graphite's help, that we've got battery grade graphite. That is 99.95% purity. We need to show that we've got that, so that opens up another market for us. Aside from the industrial uses of graphite, the battery market is obviously moving and growing exponentially. So we want to be part of that. So that's part of what this test work is focused on. That can be done whether we're in the field on, and there's other work like that we can do on our Greenlandic projects. We want to do a scoping study on our Melville Bay project. We never talk about that. It's an iron ore project. It's got a JORC resource. It was drilled at the cost of several £million by a previous operator. We picked it up. Iron and prices obviously have fluctuated a bit. They've been better than they have been for some time. There is a possibility of monetizing that asset. You know, an up-to-date scoping study to show that Melville Bay project has legs is money well spent. And that's all. There's all the data is available. It's a desktop exercise by an international consulting firm who know what they're doing and will give confidence to the market that that's a real project again. So there's lots that we can be doing, and we are planning to do. So I wouldn't be downhearted if I was an Alba investor. There's going to be plenty of movement and plenty of progress across our projects.
Okay. I suppose what your focus has got to be on constructing a story and reports and analyses which allows people to make a determination as to whether or not they want to fund you to actually do any of these projects, because they're all going to require money, more money than you've got today. You've got to also tell a story about what your focus is and what you're going to be doing. And I think you're telling me Greenland for the reasons you said, but it's probably not going to be core focus, but Wales and Clogau gold perhaps is. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, Greenland will be a focus, as I said, in terms of the non-field work activities. Field work activities will probably have to be on hold now. I haven't taken a definitive view on that yet because we've still got time. But there's a receding possibility of going into the field in Greenland this summer, right? Because we're already almost into May. But yes, Wales is a different kettle of fish, and there's a lot we can do in the field in Wales, and we will be doing. So there'll be news on that coming. In terms of money, some of those things I talked about in Wales are fairly modest in terms of mining, normal mining costs. These are bulk sampling and regional exploration is fairly inexpensive. We can do that from our runway of cash that's coming or that we've already got. The other projects, we were looking at joint ventures on some of our Greenlandic assets, and they were coming to, those discussions were coming on, nothing to report, but they were coming on. But unfortunately with COVID, a lot of those discussions from people who would otherwise be interested buyers are on hold, because just as we are cautious with our capital, other people are being very cautious with theirs as well, and they don't want to get involved in new assets necessarily until they see this thing receding into the distance and it being safe to invest again. So but those things can easily be ramped up where we get into joint ventures on one or two of our assets. And that will obviously unlock cash because the joint venture partner will fund its way into the project.
Brilliant.
And that's another way to avoid capital raisings. We look at those joint venture possibilities.
Yeah, I think we discussed them last time in October. So I appreciate it's difficult times for mining, difficult times to, when you know what you want to do but can't do it, it must be very frustrating. So I appreciate the update on where you're at. Please stay in touch and let us know how you're getting on, and hopefully some semblance of normality resumes soon. Because I say, yours is an interesting one in that it's a relatively small company with multiple assets, and you've got optionality on how you manage or monetize or create value from them. So I'm always intrigued to stay in touch with Alba Minerals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.